Welcome to What We Made Possible, the podcast where we explore the power of healing and driving change for advocates, leaders, and changemakers. The conversations here draw the connection between creating new possibilities in the world, possibilities of care, of belonging, of thriving for our communities, with stories of personal healing and loving relationship building. I am your host, Patty Dayleg, leadership coach for social change. I spent a decade in nonprofits, government, and DEI, securing 6- and 7-figure opportunities for communities of color. And I've experienced firsthand the transformative power of compassion, healing, and belonging in making a bigger impact. Let's dive in. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to What We Made Possible. Today, we have a great treat. I'm with Sheila Burmistrova, who is the founder and CEO of Narra Collective, which is my coworking space. So I'm going to just share a little bit about Narra. It's the only 100% women and Filipino-owned coworking space in the greater New York City area. And Shai has a background in early stage startups, operations, and commercial real estate. And she brings this rare blend of vision and execution to her work, reimagining what workspaces can feel like when they're built around people, not just around productivity. Centered on community, inclusivity, and Filipino hospitality, Narra exists for creatives, founders, and families often left out of traditional workspaces, and is now home to 80 plus members and hundreds of community guests. Welcome, Shai.
Thank you. Thank you, Patty. Wow, it's so surreal, like hearing the introduction, but I cannot believe it. But yeah, I'm so excited for today. Thank you so much for this opportunity, and I can't wait for our conversation.
Yeah, I'm so excited. And one thing to know is that the 1-year anniversary of Narra is coming up.
Yes, it's coming. It's coming in 12 days as
In
we
12 days.
record this. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first question that I like to ask folks in these conversations is, what is in your current reality, things that you do, things that are just like in your everyday now that a younger version of you didn't think or even know was possible?
Definitely a lot of my day to day now is involving number one, I am a mom of an almost 3-year-old boy, and his name is Teddy. And then outside of that, there is my second baby, which is Nara Collective. So day to day looks like nothing is about the same because I feel like now that I'm really getting through the first year of being an entrepreneur and learning more about the business, learning more about our client and our community, it is evolving and we're always kind of like adapting to what they are asking of us, right? It is also a lot of conversations with members, trying to help them as they navigate their growth into their own businesses and nurturing my team. So when I started Nara, at a point it was just me, and I have Mia that time who works with me part time. She would come half a day, and for most parts of the day, it would be me in the office. And now it's incredible to see also as the company and the brand and the business grows, that I'm also able to grow and nurture our team. So we now have an incredible team of 4 women, all Filipinos. One of them is Gail, who is currently in the Philippines. And then we have 3 team members that are here on site, not just helping me grow the brand and grow the business, but also like it's like a nice mix because they're all business owners of their own. So it's almost kind of like navigating this journey that for me, I don't feel like I'm a seasoned entrepreneur just yet. I'm always learning and I'm always kind of like excited to see what's coming. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's challenging, but it keeps everything dynamic and a learning process every day.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely dynamic in that space.
Yes.
Um,
It's a big space. So, like, I mean, you've been here, and sometimes I don't even understand sometimes how we are making it work because there's a lot of like moving pieces. People think that it's just the event and the members that we're trying to serve, but actually it comes with a lot of like maintenance cost as well, making sure that we, because our brands has always been focused on Filipino hospitality, just because we're Filipinos and it almost comes second nature to us, and that's how our brand is getting known right now. It's not just the space is beautiful, but it's kind of like the level of community service that we provide. But obviously, we need to be making sure that we are also in the process providing a nice and comfortable space for them that they would want to come in every day. And I say that as an entrepreneur, as a founder of Nara, I don't think that my biggest competition are the next door co-working space near us or the big names in the industry. But my goal every day is to give people a reason to get out of their couch or their kitchen table or their bedroom and connect and be plugged in to Nara, not just a space, but a place where you can connect and grow your network.
Yeah. I mean, you're this master connector, right? I just remember the last Filipino business owner networking event, and there
Yes.
were over 100 people of us, a
Oh my
hundred of us
God.
there.
Yes, it was so incredible, and we didn't even expect 100 people because, like, the first time we did it, there was about maybe 85 people. A lot of them actually are in the food and restaurant space, and we thought that was a good number because we did it on a Monday, which is like a nice and like slower day for restaurant owners. And this time, the second one where you attended quite recently in August was a Thursday night. And we thought, yeah, we'll probably have 50 people and we're happy with that. But people just keeps on coming. And it was so incredible to see because I think one of the main reasons really for me personally why I am so invested into Nara and the community that we are trying to build and nurture is because when I moved here, it took me a while to almost assimilate and find that community of Filipinos that I'd be comfortable with, that I'd be able to chat about the day to day, who I can relate to. And just thinking about that, like to your point, like my previous self wouldn't have known that I would be a community builder, for example, for Filipinos. It was just like I wouldn't have thought about that, and now it's actually happening. But I'm very grateful that people are resonating to what we do and are really supporting us because I started the business with not much expectations. Like I didn't even thought, okay, I'll like frankly, when I was beginning, I was like, okay, I'll give it 6 months and we'll see if it's gonna work. Like, let's see if it's work. If not, then I'll be back in the corporate job. But getting into the first year has been really almost like coming full circle. And we're very grateful to everyone who got us here because it's not just myself and the team, but it is, a lot of like Filipinos in the community coming here, coming together and building the community under Nara.
Yeah. Can you take us back to a year ago, that moment when you were deciding to start Nara?
Oh
What was happening in
man.
your life? What was happening with your family, your body?
Yep,
There's a story here.
there is. And I always say whenever people ask me that Nara is my second child, but it came from the life and the experience that I've been. So I'll take you back, not just like maybe a year ago, but even before that. So I was born and raised in the Philippines, moved here in 2019, got married. I had a very challenging time being pregnant. So I had to go through 4 rounds of in vitro fertilization, which has been probably, there's NARA and then there's that process of IVF, which has been really, it just consumed me almost, for lack of a better word. It was tough and challenging physically for my body, but also financially, it's expensive. But we know that like we wanted to have a family of our own, hence we did it. And finally, it got successful on the fourth round because I feel like having that, I don't know, motherly nature. I know I wanted to be a mom, and when I became a mom, then there was that whole experience and journey too. Because like I've been waiting for it and I've been working on it, quite honestly. And then when it finally happened, there was a lot of changes again in my body, but also it was isolating. I found myself at some point not knowing who I really was, what I'm really feeling and trying to process because of you're physically exhausted. There's that part of you, and you're just on 24 hours a day. And a lot of people might not have realized it, but I feel like being a mother, and for me at that time, being a full time stay at home mom for the first year since I had Teddy is probably the hardest CEO job I had to take because you're just on 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. There's no day off. Like, if I'm lucky, I would take a shower probably. Like, it's not like it was a luxury at that time. It was like, what's going on? And it was like just so unexpected. So there was that part which kind of like inspired why I wanted to build a community that then became Nara, because it was hard for me kind of like navigating what I want to do next professionally, but at the same time connecting with moms or parents that have been there and who can kind of like guide me, because myself and my husband are both first generation immigrants, and we don't have a family who would help us with the childcare and the day to day. So that was another complexity in that whole process. And I looked everywhere, like place where you could just be your normal and authentic self, be with your kids, give you the flexibility, but also make you not give up on your ambition. And there's not much around. And I thought to myself, checking my bank account and starting to build a business plan, that, wait, I can do this. It was a tough year getting to the whole plan of actually executing it, from planning to execution. But at one point, I just felt like it was so worth it. And it is really something that I want to do, where every day I would be going to work or to this community, and I'm not going to be dragging myself, because I feel like it's serving not just growth for myself professionally, but also helping out and giving back to the community of parents, of immigrants, of business owners that also need the space to connect and belong.
I love that you're like, okay, I don't have my village to help me, so I'm going to build it. And truly,
Exactly.
Nara was like community built. I remember your early kind of calls for donations of monitors and chairs and like, hey, can you help us like move the furniture around? I want to go back to that moment where you said you were taking this year off, right? And
Yeah.
you had this great corporate career, And that pause, even though you were very busy with Teddy, you've mentioned that that has been kind of an inflection point. So walk us through the decision of like, okay, I'm not going to go back to a corporate job. I can see that I can create this community. Walk us through just like the decision.
Oh man, it took a year to really figure things out. Because, like, after I had Teddy, for a moment there, I was really feeling lost. Because even though I have this background and I was doing well in my career, I feel like there was that part of me, again, that almost kind of like drags myself every day and doesn't get me too excited because I've been trying to help these founders and startups on their operations, but it's not fulfilling me as much as I would want to. And I feel like I could always have done so much more. There's that. The second one, I feel like just logistically, again, because we don't have much help around, I know that if I go back to my life working in startups where it's very fast paced, it's long hours. On an average, I would work 12 to 14 hours a day, sometimes even weekends. And now with this baby, this human that I have to be responsible for, I just know that it's not going to be sustainable for me. And I would feel so much guilt considering what we have to go through, Sasha and I have to go through to actually have him. Hence, that decision for me to first take the year off, at least for the very first year, because it might sound cliche, but I really fully believe in that the years the nights are long, but the years are short. And now, like, oh yeah, that quote was like hands down, like 100% real. I just need to have that moment with him, I feel like, to really take a break and figure out what I want to do next. And that year of being a stay at home mom, kind of like slowing down, I feel like also provided some mental space for me to figure out what I really wanted to do next. And the decision really came and got inspired by, I guess, my experience coming from like a fast paced job that I know would not be sustainable, to providing more time so that I could be proud of the work I do, but at the same time, provide or have that time with my family, and perhaps also like at some point I probably thought to myself I could not be the only one with this challenge. And true enough, through interviews, through moms, through parents that I've connected, there's that common denominator of not having enough time in the day to be a professional or to be a business owner, but also to be very present with your child. And that was just kind of like really the inflection and the decision point that I decided that not just for me, but my way of giving back to the community, I'll give this opportunity a chance. Not going to be the end of the world if it doesn't work, but at least I wouldn't have that regret that I didn't even try. And thank goodness that it resonated with the community. And now we're on our way to our first year, which is unbelievable.
I know, it's so wild and like so grateful that you did decide to do that, you know? You mentioned there was a lot of trial and error and a lot of learning.
Oh, yeah.
What did that look like in the early months and what was surprising about what the community actually needed?
Mhm. The first, I would say, first 4 months feels like it almost feels like trying to throw a spaghetti in the wall and see what sticks. We were just trying out everything, events, like the timing of the events, the format of the events, different offers, different formats, different clients that we try to talk to and attract, which is a lot of work. And at some point, I have to kind of like, it backfired like to me, because like I almost kind of like built this business around having flexibility for parents, for founders to have the time for family and business. But as I was like navigating this, I'm kind of like taking less time with my son and engaging more in the business, even more so compared to when I was in the startup, which was like so weird and was like so challenging at first. But I believe that's kind of like true with any business and any kind of passion that you have that you actually wanted to execute and work. Like sometimes you just need to put in the time and the effort, and maybe not be afraid to ask for help from the community. For us, it meant again like a lot of trial and error in terms of like the offer, but also trying to listen to customer feedback. Because like if an offer is not working, or if you're planning an event with 20 people signing up and only one actually coming in through the door, then it's telling you something. And at first, it was very frustrating for me and my staff, because we're putting in so much work into it and no one is showing up. It was very humbling. And it was like, it almost feels like a mistake, or like this is probably not for me and it's never going to work. But I think it also came with some mindset shift. And for me, it's that these are data points, these are feedback that is telling us something. And from there, we kind of like pivot and transitioned and listened more to what our customers, our members, the community wants, and almost focus our effort, while also considering that we're a small team and we need to keep everything within budget and operational means. So we're not also stretching ourselves. And so that way it also becomes more sustainable for everyone. As to your point, was to what was surprising. So again, like we pride ourselves into being the only family-friendly co-working space in Jersey City and nearby towns, which we still are, and which we still very much advocate to. But actually, if now looking back through our data and our membership and the foot traffic of kids coming in, it's very little. And through, like again, like feedback and data points that we've gathered, it almost pointed us to a direction that some people are actually scared to be a member or to plug into the community, because they think that there would be a lot of kids and it would be distracting, or it would be loud and I can take my meetings and phone calls, which is not the actual things that are happening on site, because it comes in different zones, and we kind of like designate each zone for each kind of use case. But then we almost pivoted to focus our efforts and our program and our events to really supporting founders that are just like myself, that are navigating and trying to learn as you go, and are also underrepresented in terms of access to capital, in terms of access to experts that can almost guide them to make decisions to get their business to grow and scale.
Yeah, there's something really key in what you said earlier, which is that there were some moments where the event wasn't as successful as you wanted it to be, and there wasn't as much attendance. And I think you've told this story once at events where you say there was a time where you were the only person in the room in the co-working space, and you're like, what am I doing? And it's very easy for new business owners, new leaders to think, there's this thing that is happening that is not my intention, right? This quote unquote failure. And then
Right.
they make it about themselves, right? It's
Yep.
so easy to say, oh no, I failed. But
Yes.
that shift of like, oh no, this is just data. There's just something that we need to shift
Right.
that allows us to kind of like ground in our own ability and our own
Yep.
confidence so that we can listen. Like there's a strength that is required to be able to like listen to feedback and how
Absolutely.
people kind of like vote with their feet, right? Like
Right.
whether or not they show up, they might not tell you,
Yep.
but they might show their interest in like how they're showing up or not. So I'm curious because now that you have kind of pivoted towards like folks who are underrepresented, folks like you, there's a lot of business owners, a lot of new leaders who are coming in, a lot of women of color, right,
Oh
coming
yeah.
into this space.
Mhm.
What do you want these founders to know?
Number one, so in my day to day at Nara, to your first question, I think that really takes up maybe about 60 to 70% of my time, which is exciting. And I love doing it, is to just have these one on ones or like group discussions, or maybe sometimes even just like over lunch on like what's going on in your business. How can I help you? And I think through those conversations, there is a common theme of which aspect of their business they need help on. And I always kind of like narrow it down into almost like three pointers or tips for them. And number one is always know your numbers. It was quite a surprise for me because I feel like when I was building this business plan and this model, that was like the first instinct on my mind. Because I guess just by default, I'm very driven by data and by numbers, like having been worked in startups. That's number one. Number two is really know who your community and who your clients are, and know what they really need, not just what they really want. Because that way, you would really be able to tailor your offer, your community, your program into something sustainable and something that will create impact, not just to their business, but to their growth as a business owner. And then number three is, again, it's almost now like synonymous to Nara, is always to find your community, not just, like an audience who would like your post in Instagram, but it could be just like, say, for example, right now we have a group of moms who are entrepreneurs that meets every month. Doesn't necessarily have to be a transaction. It could just be a safe space for you to connect and for you to learn, because like one thing about my experience, I guess, is that every day is a learning process and you never stop learning and gathering those data so that you can evolve and pivot into something more sustainable as a business and more efficient as a business owner. So, and sometimes you just need a soundboard because it could be very isolating and sometimes expensive to have a coach, for example. But if you just build your community towards some community that, like you resonate with, or you can kind of like trust and collaborate to, it could also provide you with an avenue to not just, like learn more, but also expand your services or your offer, or, like your impact to the bigger community.
Yeah. Do you find that the business owners that you speak with, there's challenges around like knowing their community, knowing their numbers? I'm curious, like what questions do people bring to you? Like I'm actually curious, like what numbers are you even talking about? What's important to know?
Right. Well, I think number one, most definitely, is the access to capital. That's always a thing, or just budgeting to make it work for them, or if they are in transition, how can they create an opportunity or a business that would enable them to leave their 9 to 5 and pivot. So, and again, for me, I always believe that you really need to plan ahead before you leave that 9 to 5, and provide some cushion and reserve so that you have enough time to almost have a runway and test your product, your service without having to undergo much financial stress. With Nara right now, because we're still like a fairly new company, we are still not able to provide that capital or invest ourselves, but at least provide some guidance in terms of financial literacy or what avenues are available for them to fund their business, or how to at least assess their finances and risk before you pull the plug. So that's always number one. Number two would always revolve around sales and marketing that works for their businesses. Because, I mean, like there's the impact that you make on a business, but the reality is that your cash flow is very important. And that is always tied to an efficient strategy involving your sales and marketing. I've been seeing a lot of entrepreneurs. I mean, I guess it's still like a valid, like analogy of like having a big top of the funnel, and then it kind of like goes to like conversion down the line. I am not a big believer of that, honestly. Because if you talk about a sales funnel, it's prone to leakage, right? And there's always a churn that just kind of like converts to more stress as you go through the pipeline, the process. I almost always tell them that I believe in a sales flywheel. Because again, like, to my point of like nourishing your community, I think you should be able to build a cycle that keeps your audience, your community engaged, and making them confident into your brand, and actually removing any hindrance or I don't know, hesitations that they have along the process. And through that nourishment and trust that you build down the line, it may not be them becoming your client down the line or on that wheel, but they would mostly recommend you to folks they know just because they trust you.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of that kind of like typical knowledge is what we get from being in like these white male dominated rooms. And it sounds like you've had some unlearning that you've done in terms of what marketing looks like and in
There's
terms
my
of what the
nervous
business.
laugh.
Yeah. Tell me, yeah, I mean, let's talk about that. Like what unlearning have you had to do, leaving corporate, leaving like the startup space and creating this business that is really a community, right? It's not just like, yes, the numbers are important and of course your
Yeah,
cash flow is important and all of these
right,
pieces, but the whole point is to create a space that is welcoming and comfortable and feels like home for a lot
right.
of the business owners like me who get
Yeah.
to work there. Yeah, let's talk about that unlearning.
All right. So I guess I'll start the story from the time when I was trying to find a landlord that I can partner with. Let's start there, because that's a very important piece of my story. And again, like, to my point that I like to keep track of, I like spreadsheets. I keep track of like almost everything, Nara. And then, like a few months ago, I was like reviewing it because I was preparing for a talk. And I realized that it took me about, not about, but exactly 104 rejections from landlords, from brokers, from developers, from building owners, when I was just starting and trying to get a lease, essentially. And a lot of it, I would feel, I feel like it came, number one, because at that time I was doing all these tours, not even tours, like inquiries, and I have like a baby on like strapped in front of me. And then, like they review your profile and such, financials, and then they saw that you're a stay-at-home mom, and they feel like, well, like, is this your hobby? Is this something you're just trying to do for fun? And that was really deeply humbling and discouraging at first, because it took about 10 months until I found someone who said yes to the idea of Nara. And I guess a lot of like their hesitation also revolves around their assumptions of liability, because I wanted to have kids on site, and they were like, well, we don't want that. That's not really how we want to handle it. And that has been really like challenging to navigate. The other part is the funding. So Nara is 100% self-funded, and that came again from being rejected by financial institutions to secure a loan, just because they think, well, again, like, well, you're a stay at home mom and this is probably just your hobby. So that was really, really challenging. But it also really got me looking at my numbers and seeing whether or not I can give it a risk, or am I able to carry that risk financially. And thank goodness, we're raised in an Asian household, and my tatay always say that hindi tanong, like I'll say it in Tagalog. So like he always say, ang ulan ay hindi tanong kung, but kung kailan, which kind of like roughly translates to rainy day is not a question of if, but of when. That's kind of like the mindset that has been behind where I'm kind of like going through. So they've always really encouraged me to save up for the rainy day, because you'll never know when you'll need it. And I've always been grateful for that, because down the line, at first, it was like growing up, it felt very restrictive, because like, well, I'm earning this much, but like, why can I save it? Or like, why can I indulge? But looking back now, I'm grateful for that piece of wise words, because it enabled me to start Nara and bootstrap the company. And I think at some point I also just decided that I'm done explaining things to people and almost getting them to buy out on an idea and getting rejected over and over again. And so it was so surreal to me when my current landlord finally said yes, because I feel like at that time I got so numb and used to hearing no's. I almost forgot what a yes sounded like. I'm like, are you sure? Like, is this real? Like, um, so that kind of like dynamic has also been a piece that I tell members, and especially moms that are like trying to bootstrap their company or pivot, or like turn a side hustle into like a full-time business, that there's always a way. It just really takes some assessment of your personal risk and your finances. So there's that. But at the same time, I guess because this is like a real estate industry, if you will, so it's almost unavoidable that there would be instances where you're like the only woman in a room full of men, white men in particular. And at first I'm always so overwhelmed. And I had this story when like I was asked, so like who's your boss? Because they thought I was like an assistant in like a networking event. And then I said that I am the owner of the, or I am the founder of this business. They would get surprised. Sometimes it happens here at Nara that because I'm very hands on, I still do the coffee if the team needs hands, or move tables if we have like a big event and we need all hands on deck. One time I remember we have an event and I was like propping the door with something so that it stays open. And a guy thought I was the receptionist or something, and he was giving me the vibe, the attitude. But as soon as I said, "Oh, who?" He asked me like, "Who owns the space?" Because I wouldn't normally disclose it in a particular circumstance. And then when he found out that I am the owner, his tone suddenly shift, which is weird, but just something that I like learn how to handle on a day to day. And I always tell this, particularly to the moms and women owned businesses, that sometimes you really need to be able to handle and play with the big boys and learn their playbook so that you can take it home, make it your own, and make it better. And I feel like right now that's been also the journey behind Nara, because there is the co-working part of the business, but we don't sell desks and offices and such. That's kind of like secondary to the community, to the network, to the hospitality that we provide the customers.
Yeah. So I think what I hear you saying is that unlearning was about not listening to all of these kind of voices to say, who do you think you are? But to really say, like, no, I am the founder here.
Yeah,
I am the owner. I
yeah,
started this. This is my
yeah.
idea. And and now it's this beautiful space, but it makes a lot of sense because this is who you're centering in your business. I'm curious what you've learned about building community that centers BIPOC leaders, right? Parents,
Yes.
folks who are not well represented in the business space. What have you learned about building community specifically for us?
hmm So, just a primer, 80% of NARA members are BIPOC and 60% are women, which tells you a lot of like who we attract and who gravitate towards our space. And again, I think it really revolves around understanding and knowing what they really want and what they really need to answer that lack of belonging or community, or providing support to their business, or just providing the space in general where they can grow their network or meet people that they wouldn't normally meet if they could have just worked in a coffee shop and engage and actually build relationships from there. Number one, I think that's really what we stand for and what we're right now trying to solve and provide, is that access to a safe community that you can rely on, and that is actually very communal. Like, you would be surprised how we have a group of like coaches, or like financial planners and experts that are here because they just really want to be plugged in a community and make them be creative on things that they do. And they don't really ask much in return. They just want to provide their expertise for free for members, which is incredible to see. The second one, really tying back to what the community need is really access to capital. And I feel like that's, the next phase of Nara, which we are very excited to navigate and to share more with everyone.
She's being cagey on purpose, but I'm sure we will learn more
Oh
after
yeah.
at the anniversary
Yes,
event
that's
in
why you
12
need to
days.
go on October 20th.
Well, let's talk about it more broadly. Like when you think about the vision of Nara for the future, right? And then
Right.
this piece around access to more resources for BIPOC business owners, for BIPOC founders, right? What ripple effects are you hoping that you create?
Definitely more social change, I feel like. And in the process, I think like during our prep meeting, also just a sense of healing in a deeper sense. Because I feel like being an entrepreneur, being a mom almost uses the same muscle because it's coming for me personally. I feel like I got what really got me here is that sense that I feel like I was broken, and there is that piece of belief that you want to make something better. I don't know if I'm making sense, but like on a deeper sense, that's really what got me here. And so right now, a year after, I'm very, very grateful to have built a more sustainable team and business that I'm almost gr- like preparing the team for what's ahead of us and what's next. And for me, that's more of creating social impact and solving that need of the community that doesn't necessarily have the capital just yet to become, fully a full-time member or have a space to access what amenities we have on site or the mentors and the coaches that we have, and trying to build some kind of infrastructure to solve that need and provide solution.
Yeah. So when these business owners have that capital, when they have those resources, what do you imagine that they're able to do? What's possible from there?
Everything is possible. I think
Mm.
this is also one thing that I say, but like I feel like being a business owner is a wild mix of being delirious almost to the point that you question your sanity, but it's also a lot about being resilient and having that stamina that makes you go from 0 to 1 and not giving up, even though physically you're drained. You might not be having a lot of face time with your family, and your bank account is also drained, but just having that sense of belief and hard work to be able to really give it a try or give it a chance. To my point of like solving this need or providing solutions. Okay, so maybe like I'll share a little a little primer. So we are working on a fellowship program, is what we call it, which is basically almost building a cohort or a program that provides, first time founders or women in particular who are in transition to become a business owner, to provide them access to the space and the mentorship and the coaches and the program that we provide, while having the big boys to pay the bill.
I love it. I love it.
Yes.
And so all that they need to then bring is their stamina and their desire to make it work, right? Which is sometimes so challenging.
Challenging.
For you, because I mean, 104 rejections, right? There was something that was driving you forward in that moment and continues to drive you. I'm curious, like, what helps you stay grounded? What helps you kind of continue on with that stamina?
It's definitely my husband, Sash. He is the opposite of me. He's very calm, he's very process driven, he's very he's just the calm to my storm almost. And I am very grateful because a big piece of this puzzle, of this story, wouldn't have been what it is right now without him. Because during that time that I was really in the weeds, because I'm trying to manage this capital that I have, he gave me almost that space and that encouragement that it could be done. And he took up most of the work as far as childcare goes for Teddy. Because I feel like without that, it wouldn't have been possible. And that is also one important learning that I try to tell, particularly mom. I always circle back to moms because we have a lot of moms in the community. That before they fully go all in, they need to have that sense of support from their partner because this is a grind and it takes a lot of hours and grit and maybe some tears in the process. And they need to have someone who will anchor them and will pull them back to earth. Because at some point, you would be under fire and the world will be crushing on you. But it helps a lot if someone is there when you come home who would just kind of like give you the calm and provide space so that you can continue every day without much guilt, especially if you have kids.
Yeah. Shai, you are incredible. I love the space that you have created for us at Nara. Is there anything that you wanted to say that you haven't gotten to say yet?
Well, we always tease people about Nara's anniversary, so I'll start there. Yes, so in 12 days, we are celebrating Nara's first anniversary, and it's going to be a 3-day celebration here at our space in Jersey City. So we'll be kicking off the celebration on October 28th, which is the actual first year of Nara since we opened doors. And we're hosting an incredible luncheon catered actually by one of our partner chefs, Next Door Provision and Chef Ruby. So we're very excited for that. We always try to inject Filipino culture and flavor and dishes in particular, which people love, to all the celebrations that we host. And then we'll have keynote about authentic storytelling and a roundtable networking, which Nara is known for. So everyone are able to find their voice and share a little bit about their business and actually ask for help and support from the community. The second one is our Future of Work Summit on the 29th. And on the third day, we are hosting a members appreciation day and Halloween for the kids. So that would be a fun celebration as well. So I hope that everyone would be able to join us and celebrate this incredible milestone for Nara.
Perfect. We will link that in the show notes so that folks can join if they're local and they're able to come. And otherwise, we'll also include all of the links for Narra in our show notes so that you can come and co-work with me at the space and with Shai and the team. They're amazing. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me. This was such a good conversation. It's always so nice to just like share space and share stories with you. And I'm sure that folks are going to take away a lot of that, just like grit and stamina and desire, and also just like, what are we creating for ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
So yeah, thank you so much for creating this space. And Shai, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Patty. And I'm so excited to see you in a couple of weeks.
Yes. All right, thank you all. Thank you for listening to What We Made Possible. I really hope this episode resonated. As a coach, I always end with action steps, and so I invite you to do something, which is to pause and ask yourself, what resonated? What am I taking away? And what's possible for me and my community now? If you liked this conversation, please leave a review and a rating. It helps so much. Thanks again.